and Blues, the number one team in the country, and the coaches do too.
Well, they just showed it to me last night.
Yeah.
With just another pounding of another team.
Yeah.
Michigan, they just ran Villanova out of Ann Arbor. Like, it's just actually unreal that Michigan is somehow ranked behind Arizona. But at the same time, it doesn't really matter to me because Arizona and Michigan are far and away the two best teams in college basketball right now. Arizona led by freshman Koa Pete. I mean, no one really thought that he was going to have the big impact that he had in the first game against Florida. So Arizona's already got a few nice wins over SEC teams coming off that huge win over Auburn. But, this is a big game for Alabama because, in my opinion, this is going to set the stage between, hey, are you going to be that 3 seed? Is this your rise back up? Are you going to come back to what you were 2 years ago? Or is it going to be, we're going to make the field. We're going to have great offense, but it's just going to be, you just cannot get over the hump.
Yeah, I really love what Alabama did with their schedule this year because obviously played, as you mentioned, a lot of tough teams already, but smashed this game right before the college football playoff, understanding that Bama might be in the CFP, and this is a chance to get their eyes on another big-time team coming to the state of Alabama, and then Alabama once again playing this game over at Legacy Arena in the BJCC, that CM Newton Classic, honoring a former Alabama great coach there. And obviously going to another big venue, lots of Alabama graduates that are in the Birmingham area. And for those who aren't familiar with Birmingham and Tuscaloosa, those two cities are only like 45 minutes apart. So it'll be really tight there. So, it's kind of like when Alabama played St. John's. It considered it a neutral site game, but that thing was 80%, 90% St. John's fans. It'll be the same thing for Alabama, 80 to 90% Alabama fans. You mentioned Koa Pete, and if I'm making a short list of maybe the 5 best players so far through the season, most teams have played in and around 10 games so far. You can't make a list of 5 players without having Koa Pete on there with the way he's played. Obviously, Cam Boozer's played well. There's another guy that'll be on that same court, LeBaron Philon, who's played well as well, but Koa Pete's been sensational.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of a few freshmen where I think I said this the other day. It feels like the NBA just only targets freshmen when they're looking at the draft. I mean, rarely ever do you see a guy like Zach Edey, stay for as long as he did in college basketball and then continue to actually be drafted. And he's having, I believe, a nice year with the Memphis Grizzlies. But Koa Pete, I mean, he's not going to shoot the 3. He's a big man. But he's averaging close to 16 points per game. He's got the 5 rebounds per game, shooting north of 50% from the field. And honestly, the free throw numbers aren't great, but for a big man, 67% is pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely is. And he will be a handful. I think I read a stat that Alabama might be, I think, top 10 as far as 3-point shots attempted so far this year.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
And I think Arizona is second to last in the country at attempted 3-point shots. These two teams play polar opposite styles of basketball. We'll touch more on Arizona in a minute. We'll hear from their head coach. But let's go back to Alabama because the one big player for them has been LeBaron Philon, and he has been a sensational not only player but leader for this basketball team and the reigning SEC Player of the Week.
Yeah, reigning SEC Player of the Week when he tied his career high in points with 29 against Clemson. I mean, that was, when you look at that game for Alabama, you jump out to the big lead. But, you kind of got a gut check there towards the second half because if I recall correctly, Clemson lost by, I think, 6 points.
Yes.
And Alabama was well within away from Clemson at one point in the game. But we saw Clemson earlier in the year. The Tigers are known for the comebacks. They weren't on the right end of one last night, so you almost got to wonder where the mentality is for them there. But I mean, we've been talking about it. I seriously think LeBaron Philon's probably going to be a lottery pick this year. I know he's not a freshman, as I mentioned.
Right.
So maybe that might stir some teams away with age, which I find a little bit interesting.
Me too.
Because it's like, what, you want to get a few extra years out of a guy? I mean, we saw, I don't know, Reed Shepherd. I think went pretty early. I just don't understand the wanting just guys one and done. I mean, when they're like 19 years old, and in comparison to like 21 or 22 year olds.
Correct. Not to mention that I mean, there are only a handful of rookies that I can think of that have actually contributed to major winning in the NBA.
Yes.
You just don't get it from rookies for the most part. You get it from guys that have been there 3-4 years. Typically, guys will start to peak. Even the greatest of the greats, like LeBron James and others, you don't normally peak as a rookie. So I don't understand, like you said, the obsession to go with the number one guy always being a freshman and then having questions about them if they stay for that extra year. Guys a lot of times use that extra year to develop, and especially in this day and age when you can make millions of dollars or at least hundreds of thousands of dollars and stay in college and develop. If I'm an NBA scout, I would actually like that more from a development standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I could, maybe somewhat understand it with football because the careers are shorter and you know, at some point you just take too many hits and then you're like, all right, you know, I don't want to really do this anymore.
Yeah.
But with basketball, I will say this. I'll say it with a little bit of respect. I think basketball is just a little bit less physically demanding than football is.
It is.
I know it's taxing on the body going
from a travel standpoint. Yeah.
Travel, you know, ACL, Achilles tears, which, I mean, if we want to talk about injuries in sports recently, I cannot fathom the amount of Achilles tears we have seen over the last year. It's just like a spike all of a sudden. So, but anyways, back to it. I still am just shocked that we've just gone to, because, I mean, you're not going to find a Kobe Bryant all the time. Like, I just don't understand it.
Right.
Like, let these guys go to college, develop a little bit. And I think we're going to see that more often with NIL, obviously. But it's just, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know if it ever will, but that's just my take.
Well, the track for LeBaron Philon seems really great, and he has led this team through a nice stretch here. Coach Nate Oates and company put together a really, really tough schedule, and we'll see, like, the fact that, you know, they've been able to kind of grind out some games here as of late and be able to win some close games. We talked about this with Florida. They don't have that marquee win on their schedule so far. Bama does have a few of these in their last few games. Yeah,
they do have a few nice wins going back to the Players era. The last 4 games really won't show it as much as some of that 4-game stretch where they played 4 straight ranked opponents at 2-2. But I mean, blowout win over UNLV to round out the Players era. A blowout win against Maryland. It should have been a blowout win against Clemson, but good on the Tigers for coming back in that one. And then a blowout win against UT San Antonio here. So this is going to be their first big matchup since that big stretch right before the Players era.
Absolutely. Head coach Nate Oates for the Alabama Crimson Tide talked about some of the things that he wants to see from his team from a turnover perspective.
Yeah, it was great. We had 0 at the half. I mean, I thought we had a couple on underneath out of bounds plays. We got to get that cleaned up. We didn't look very good on our underneath out tonight. When did we have fewer than 5? I didn't. Creighton? Yeah, 23. Yeah, Creighton's a lot different. They definitely went all in on the effective field goal percentage defense with Kalkbrenner and just try to push you down to him so that would make sense. So, no, I thought our guys really moved the ball. You know, Austin's teams have been pretty aggressive up in the gaps. So, you know, we tried to move the nail help and just really emphasize you're going to get 2 on the ball, just get rid of it. So first half, I thought we did a much better job of it than we did in the second. Thought we shot it worse in the second, had the 5 turnovers in the second. The ball just didn't move nearly like it needed to in the second half.
I know the SEC is a completely different beast, but in 3 months, where do you see this Tide team, given how they've played in some of the games we've seen, both in the neutral site games as well as the true home games and true road games?
You know, this game will really tell me, but I mean, it'll also tell a lot of people, because you look at that 4-game stretch that they went on, going 2-2. The loss to Purdue definitely hurt. The loss to, I believe it was Gonzaga, also hurt. But you got some wins over some good opponents, and then you beat St. John's, you beat Illinois. So it's hard to gauge, but I think I'm going to make a bold prediction.
Okay.
An absolute bold prediction for that being this early in the year. This is a must-win game.
Oh, yeah.
You have to win this game. And I know there's going to be more games on the schedule. You still have the entirety of the SEC play.
Right.
You have to win this game.
Yeah.
Because if you win this game and you just handle business, you win 3 of the 4 games, like 3 out of every 4 games that you should win.
Right.
I think Alabama's going to be a number 2 or a number 3 seed, and that's exactly what you want going into this tournament. I don't think they're going to be a number 1 seed, but if they are, I think where this game's going to be playing over in Birmingham, I think Birmingham's hosting the first 2 rounds again this year. So just like a few years ago when they were the number 1 seed, it's not going to be a far trip for them.
Exactly, and they can secure themselves a spot right there. Alabama is the number 12 team in the country right now, so if there were a bracket that were put out right now, I know this is a silly exercise, but if there's a bracket that put out right now, they'd be, what, a 4 seed?
3. I think the latest projection was a 3 seed.
It was a 3 seed, yeah. So they could stay right in that bubble or move up, as you said, with a big win over Arizona. Let's turn over to the Wildcats now. They made that jump to number 1 in the country in the AP poll, number 2 in the coaches poll. Still runaway, as you said, with Michigan as the top 2 teams in the country. They're coming over a win over Bama's biggest rival, the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, and I've been saying it all week. It's just, it feels like it's the year of the blowout, and this one was no exception. We talked about it. Tahad Pettiford had 30 points for Auburn in that game, but only had 1 assist, and that's not going to win you a lot of games. But, Arizona's deep. And as you mentioned, they like to score in the paint, and then Koa Pete will obviously help you. So it is an interesting dynamic because Arizona's probably going to be the more consistent scoring team. Like you'll see consistency because it's not rocket science. The closer you are to the basket, the more likely it is for you to score.
Right.
But Alabama, with their 3-point shooting, will never be out of a game.
Yes.
I tell you what, I was rewatching that UTSA game. And some of these shots are diabolical.
Yes. Yep.
Like way downtown. Like this Steph Curry range.
I was listening to our friends at the next round. They had Coach Nate Oates on, Jim Dunaway, who's been on this show before, Ryan Brown and Lance Taylor. They do a great job over there. But they had an interview today with Coach Oates, and he threw out a stat. Coach Oates is a numbers guy. He threw out a stat today that blew my mind. They shot 57 three-pointers in that game against
57?
UTSA. 57. Meanwhile, Arizona shot 16 total in their previous game. Nate Oates made the joke that Alabama probably shot 16 three-pointers before the first half, the second media timeout. Like, that's how much they were shooting. So, like, it's such a complete opposite set of styles in this game because Bama's going to run and gun and shoot. I don't know if they'll shoot 57 in Birmingham.
Do you have the box score up?
And shoot it up. I
can get up. Here we go. We're gonna play our favorite game. Guess the amount of shots that Alabama took from the field. I've gotten this right once before.
On the money.
It is, right on the money, and that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Sorry, not to brag or anything. All right, so they scored 90.
They scored 97. They won 97-55.
97-55, and they shot 53 pointers. They had to have shot 80 shots from the field.
82.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are we doing here?
82 shots.
I kind of made it a joke about Nate Oates runs an NBA-style offense when I first said it. I wasn't truly being serious.
Yes.
Now I think I might actually have to be serious about this.
Yes, exactly.
This is NBA style.
Yes, and there's some NBA teams who won't shoot 50-plus three-pointers in a game. It is crazy. But, I mean, and they played the Roadrunners, and they were making them run all over the court. I tell you what, but I do think Arizona will slow it down. But another thing that I heard from Coach Oates there in that interview, which I thought was pretty interesting because I'll go into the game thinking of it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Because anytime you think of teams that play the half-court style, you think they slow it down and it's really, really methodical. They wait till 4, 5, 10 seconds in the shot clock. Apparently, that's not this Arizona team. They get into their sets really quickly, so they actually play with tempo even though they don't shoot a bunch of three-pointers. So it feels like the pacing, the tempo, might be leaning Alabama's way, even though Arizona has the chance to control those kind of games, even if they go fast.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it on the surface, you would think this Arizona team is kind of like the Virginia teams of years past under Tony Bennett, where it was, all right, slow the game down.
Right.
I mean, it felt like more often than not, Tony Bennett's teams would have the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Goodness, I'm blanking on Malcolm Brogdon. It was one of the big ones. But I don't know.
Yeah.
This is like one of those games where it's like it's such a toss-up.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Alabama to not. So when I'm thinking about this game, it's going to be tough not to just throw up a ton of 3-pointers. And then
Sure.
they're not falling, and then it's like, okay, Arizona's scoring basically 2 points, 2 points, 2 points, so consistent. And then it's like, all right, you gotta throw some more 3-pointers up. I don't know, it's gonna be tough, but I think if the threes are falling, and this is not really a great projection, if the threes are falling, Alabama wins this game by 10.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds about right because, I mean, obviously they can control it, and they do like that style of basketball. The Cats in these last few games got a big win over Auburn. This is a team that seemingly just they when they play their brand, they play their style, they're almost unbeatable. Just before we toss it to break, let's hear from head coach Tommy Lloyd there on this team continuing to be physical.
Well, it's something we work on a lot. I mean, there's ways to be physical without fouling. We want to be as physical as we can be, but we talk about playing clean basketball and, and contesting, the shots within the rules. And that's what we really focus on. But, hey, they also did a good job of, when you get down sometimes in those games, you need to make the game a little uglier and, put your head down and drive and, get to the bonus and, kind of make the game a little choppy. And they did a good job of that, So I wasn't ever sitting there thinking, this thing's done. I mean, with, 12 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go, I mean, they were feel like they were just marching to the free throw line. So I told our guys, we got to play better defense without fouling. I mean, it's as simple as that. And for stretches we did. But I'm sure there'll be some fouls we'll look at that we wish we could clean up.